The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of our Charleston home, casting delicate shadows across the empty bed where Caleb should have been. I lay there, staring at the ceiling's exposed beams, the silence louder than any alarm. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand, each vibration a needle in my chest. I reached for it, expecting a work email, but the screen glowed with fraud alerts: our joint account, overdrawn, credit cards, maxed, withdrawal attempts denied. My breath caught, not from shock, but from the bitter confirmation of what I'd suspected for months. I'm Grace Harper, a forensic accountant who's spent 15 years unraveling financial lies in Charleston's bustling business scene. Numbers have always been my refuge, a language of truth I learned to trust growing up in a small low-country town. My mother, a seamstress with calloused hands and endless hope, lost everything to a charming con man when I was 12. I watched her count pennies for groceries, her dreams stolen by someone who promised love but delivered ruin. That betrayal carved me, made me a woman who sees patterns where others see chaos. I slipped on my robe and padded to the kitchen, where a note was taped to the fridge, Caleb's handwriting sharp as a blade. Goodbye. Never loved you anyway. The words hit like a low-country storm, sudden and brutal, but I'd been bracing for them. For 3 months, I'd tracked his late-night calls, his hidden receipts, his sudden curiosity about our retirement funds. He thought he was clever, but he'd married a woman who could read a ledger like a love letter. I sank into a chair, the fraud alerts still pinging, each one a mocking echo of his note. My mother's face flashed in my mind, her tired smile as she promised we'd be okay. I wasn't that girl anymore, helpless and betrayed. I was Grace Harper, and I'd built a life on finding truth in numbers. Caleb Whitaker, my husband of 8 years, thought he could break me with a note and a drained account. He had no idea I'd been laying a trap, one that would turn his betrayal into his undoing. My fingers brushed the folder on the counter, labeled contingency plan, and a quiet fire sparked in my chest. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. 3 months ago, the air in our Charleston home began to shift, like the first whispers of a hurricane brewing over the Atlantic. Caleb started acting different, not in grand gestures, but in the small, jagged details that only someone like me would notice. Late-night calls he'd take on the porch, his voice low and guarded. Receipts for dinners in Savannah I never attended. A sudden interest in our finances, asking about our 401k with a smile too polished to trust. I'm a forensic accountant. I spend my days dissecting lies woven into spreadsheets. Caleb's behavior wasn't just odd, it was a pattern, one I'd seen in countless fraud cases. I'd met Caleb at a Charleston gala, his charm as warm as the low-country sun. He was an investment advisor, polished and ambitious, promising a future of shared dreams. For years, I believed in us, in the life we built, a historic home on Rainbow Row, plans for a family whispered over wine. But now, those memories felt like entries in a ledger that didn't balance. I started watching him closer, my heart heavy with the weight of suspicion. At night, while he slept, I'd sit at my desk, pulling bank statements, tracking transactions he thought he'd hidden. Every purchase, a watch I never saw, a hotel stay he never mentioned, was a breadcrumb leading me deeper into his deception. I didn't confront him. Not yet. My mother's voice echoed in my mind, warning me about men who promise the world but steal your trust. I'd let Caleb's charm blind me once, but I wouldn't again. Each night, as he kissed me goodnight, I smiled back, my heart pounding with the secret I carried. I was building a case against my own husband. The irony stung, but so did the resolve growing inside me. Caleb thought he was playing me, but I was already 3 steps ahead, my pen poised over a ledger that would write his ruin. In the quiet of our Charleston home, I became a shadow detective, my nights consumed by the glow of my laptop screen. Caleb's betrayal was no longer a suspicion, but a ledger of lies I was determined to balance. I moved our savings to a secure account, flagged our credit cards, and sent encrypted files to my lawyer, each step a brick in the wall I was building around him. My office, tucked in the attic with its slanted ceilings, became my war room, the folder labeled contingency plan growing thicker with every transaction I traced. My heart ached as I worked, torn between the man I'd loved and the con artist I was uncovering. Memories of my mother haunted me, her weary eyes after the scam that stole her savings, her whispered promise that we'd survive. I'd vowed never to be that vulnerable, yet here I was, betrayed by the man I'd shared a life with. Each receipt, each hidden transfer, felt like a personal wound, but I channeled the pain into precision. Caleb's late-night calls, his business trips to Savannah, his sudden questions about my firm's clients, they all pointed to a plan to disappear with everything we'd built. I played the part of the unsuspecting wife, cooking shrimp and grits while he spun stories about his day. "Work's been crazy," he'd say, his smile too smooth, and I'd nod, my mind cataloging his lies. The folder on my desk held months of evidence, screenshots, bank records, even photos of him meeting a woman at a cafe, her face obscured, but her posture too familiar. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was preparing for justice. As the low-country moon rose outside, I felt the weight of my mother's lessons and my own resolve. Caleb thought he was writing the end of our story, but I was the one holding the pen. One humid Charleston evening, Clara burst into my office, her face pale as marsh fog. "Grace, you need to see this," she said, shoving her tablet toward me. The screen showed Caleb's name, Nathan Caldwell, not Whitaker, tied to fraud cases across 3 states. My stomach twisted, not from surprise, but from the clarity of betrayal. He wasn't just cheating me, he was a predator, targeting women like Lila Bennett, a Savannah lawyer he'd fleeced years ago. Clara's voice trembled as she scrolled through files linking Caleb to a pattern: marry, manipulate, vanish with their wealth. I called Lila that night, her voice sharp with pain but steady with resolve. "He took my inheritance," she told me, charmed his way into my life, then left me with nothing. Her story was mine, rewritten in Savannah's Oakline streets. Lila's anger mirrored my own, a fire stoked by years of Caleb's lies. We became allies, swapping notes on his tactics, his charm, his vague past, his knack for turning questions into accusations. My mother's face flashed in my mind, her trust shattered by a man like Caleb. I'd spent my career catching fraudsters, yet I'd missed the one sleeping beside me. The betrayal cut deeper than his note, but it also sharpened my purpose. Lila and I planned, our shared pain forging a bond stronger than Caleb's lies. I thought of my mother, sewing late into the night to rebuild our lives, and vowed to stop Caleb before he could ruin another woman. Charleston's salty air filled my lungs as I stared at the evidence piling up on my desk. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about every woman Caleb had broken, and the justice we'd claimed together. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Can we talk?" "I'm sorry." My heart pounded, not with hope, but with the thrill of the trap I'd set. I agreed to meet him at a Charleston cafe, its wrought iron tables gleaming under the midday sun. I walked in, my hands steady, but my chest tight with the weight of 8 years unraveling. Caleb sat there, his eyes red, his collared shirt slightly wrinkled, a perfect act of remorse. "Grace, I messed up," he said, reaching for my hand. "Bad investments." I panicked. I pulled back, my voice calm but laced with steel. "How much, Caleb?" His eyes flickered with hope, thinking I was falling for it. $200,000, he said. The emergency fund could fix it. I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm. My mother's voice echoed, "Trust the numbers, Gracie, not the man," and I thought of Lila, her life gutted by this same charm. "Like you did to Lila in Savannah?" I asked, sliding a folder across the table. His face paled, the mask slipping. Before he could recover, 2 FBI agents, led by Nora Callahan, approached. "Nathan Caldwell," Nora said, "you're under arrest." Caleb's eyes widened, darting to me, but I stood, my heart a storm of triumph and grief. "You picked the wrong woman," I said, my voice steady despite the ache of betrayal. As they led him away, Charleston's church bells chimed, a reminder of the life I'd reclaim. I'd loved him once, but now I loved the truth more. The folder in my hand held his lies. The fire in my chest held my future. Back in my Charleston office, Clara called, her voice electric with discovery. "Grace, it's worse than we thought," she said, detailing Nathan Caldwell's Ponzi scheme, a web of fraud stretching across states. He'd planned to use my credentials, my reputation, to lure wealthy clients into his biggest scam yet. The betrayal sank deeper, a knife twisting in the life we'd built. I thought of our evenings on the porch, his questions about my cases, not love, but reconnaissance. My mother's warning rang in my ears. Men like him take more than money, they take your trust. Clara revealed more. Maeve, who'd posed as Caleb's sister, was an accomplice, not family, tied to him through years of cons. His real name, Nathan Caldwell, was wanted in multiple states, a ghost who'd slipped through cracks until now. My fear grew, not for myself, but for the women he'd targeted, their lives scattered like receipts in his wake. I pictured Lila's clenched jaw, her resolve matching mine, and felt a surge of responsibility to end this. Charleston's humid air clung to me as I sat at my desk, the contingency plan folder open. Each document was a piece of Caleb's arrogance, his belief that he could outsmart me. My heart ached for the years I'd believed in him, but that pain fueled my focus. I wasn't just saving myself, I was dismantling a predator's empire. The Lowcountry night hummed outside, and I knew this fight was far from over. Caleb's lies had built a house of cards, and I was ready to pull the first one. My phone buzzed in the dead of night, a message from an unknown number. "You think you're clever, but you don't know what's coming." Attached were photos, me at the market, my mother's house, even a shot through my kitchen window. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with a cold anger I hadn't felt since I was 12, watching my mother count change for bread. Caleb had hired Elliot Kane, a Charleston thug and his former cellmate, to scare me into silence. The violation of my life, my home, felt like salt in an open wound. Then Lila called, her voice low and urgent. "Grace, Maeve is here, in your house. She's on your laptop, trying to access Caleb's accounts." My mind raced. Maeve, the fake sister, wasn't in custody as we'd thought. "Elliot's with her," Lila whispered, a crash echoing in the background. My heart pounded, but my resolve held firm. I'd anticipated Caleb's desperation, planned for it. "Lila, stick to the plan," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I called Nora, who confirmed the photos came from an IP address tied to Elliot. "We're watching your house," she assured me. "They're walking into your trap." I thought of my mother, her strength after betrayal, and felt her courage in me. Charleston's palmetto trees swayed outside, a reminder of roots that held firm in any storm. Caleb thought he could break me with threats, but he'd underestimated the woman I'd become, one who turned fear into a weapon. I sped toward my Charleston home, the marsh-scented air thick with tension. Lila's voice had been calm but sharp through the phone, guiding Maeve to my laptop screen, where every file was a decoy, live-streamed to the FBI's servers. "Look at this, Maeve," I heard Lila say, her tone defiant. "It's over." Outside, sirens wailed, cutting through the Lowcountry night like a reckoning. Nora's team swarmed the house, their boots heavy on my oak floors as they cuffed Maeve and Elliot Kane. I arrived to find my home a crime scene, its familiar corners violated yet victorious. Lila stood by the porch, her eyes fierce with the triumph of survival. "We got them," she said, squeezing my hand. Nora approached, her face grim but satisfied. "Your surveillance setup was flawless, Grace. They handed us everything: conspiracy, intimidation, the works." I nodded, my chest tight with the weight of what my home had endured. This was where Caleb and I had danced to jazz records, where I dreamed of a family. Now it was a battlefield, and I'd won. As Maeve and Elliot were led away, I stood in the doorway, the folder of evidence still warm in my hands. My mother's voice whispered, "You're stronger than their lies, Gracie," and I felt her pride. Charleston's stars glittered above, unmoved by the chaos below. Caleb's final move had been desperate, but it only tightened the noose I'd woven. My home was mine again, and so was my power. In the Charleston courtroom, the air was thick with justice and memory. Caleb, Nathan Caldwell, sat slumped, his charm replaced by a hollow stare as the judge sentenced him to 25 years for fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and intimidation. Lila sat beside me, her hand steady in mine, as we listened to other victims, women like us, from Atlanta to Raleigh, share their stories. Each voice carried the same arc: love turned to betrayal, then to triumph. My heart swelled with their courage, but ached for the years Caleb stole. I thought of my mother, sewing late into the night to rebuild our lives, and wished she could see me now, not broken but unbowed. When I stood to speak, my voice was clear, though my hands trembled. He thought he could erase us, I said, but we're the ones writing the end. Caleb's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the man I'd loved, now a stranger undone by his own greed. As they led him away, I felt no joy, only a quiet resolve. Outside, Nora clapped my shoulder. The FBI could use you, Grace. Ever thought of consulting? I smiled, the weight of my wedding ring long gone from my finger. Charleston's cobblestone streets stretched before me, leading to a future I'd forge myself. Caleb had tried to break me, but he'd only shown me my strength. With Lila and the others, I'd found a sisterhood of survivors, and together, we'd turned his lies into our legacy. Months later, I stood at a podium in Charleston's FBI office, the Ashley River glinting outside. My presentation, The Caldwell Case, detailed how we'd unraveled Nathan's scams, now a model for catching con artists. I'd taken back my maiden name, Grace Harper, shedding the last of his lies. The room buzzed with agents and analysts, their questions sharp, but my answers sharper. Lila, now a consultant, shared insights from her own betrayal, helping us bust 3 scam rings in a month. Each victory felt like reclaiming a piece of what Caleb stole. A text from Clara lit up my phone. Another victim, a Raleigh woman, had been found. Nathan's encrypted files, cracked by our team, revealed accounts to restore her losses. I thought of that morning, his cruel note on the fridge, meant to shatter me. Instead, it sparked a fire. My new apartment overlooked Charleston Harbor, its tides a rhythm of renewal. As I sat on my balcony, the salt air stirred memories of my mother's resilience. Nathan thought he'd won, but he'd forged a network of warriors, women who turned pain into purpose. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, helping others do the same. Each case we closed was a promise kept to my 12-year-old self, watching my mother fight back. Nathan's ledger of lies had become my ledger of justice, and I'd write it for as long as it took. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, battles, and a hard-won dawn. If my story stirred your heart, hit subscribe and join us, where every uncovered truth builds a stronger tomorrow. Keep seeking your justice, and I'll meet you at the ledger.